Hello, and welcome to Immigration Talk, a space where we hear from an expert on matters related to the immigration industry, law and policy, and practice. I'm Rosalie Van Staldeinen, and joining me is immigration lawyer Mark Holthe. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Rosalie. Great to be back.
It's good to have you. Mark, how do you know when a prospect is not a good fit, and how do you say no to representation?
Yeah, this is an interesting question right now. It's been quite a unique phenomenon to see what happens when there's scarcity, when the options are fewer and far between. People are much more willing to consider hiring a representative and getting assistance, and with that comes hard decisions as a practitioner. Some of our practices in some areas are shrinking, others are growing. And there's a tendency when things are a little bit tighter to maybe consider taking on clients that we probably shouldn't take on. And so this is all, this is revolves around what it means to be a good practitioner, is knowing who you can help and who maybe you should maybe refer to someone else or just not take it all. And I think if we start off, it's important to recognize the red flags. So there are certain things that if you see, you just want to avoid. And our reputations are everything. We work, our whole careers to build a reputation of integrity, and that can be lost in a second the moment we make any decision that would, compromise how IRCC views us and the reputation that we've tried to build. So we don't want to put ourselves in that kind of a position. If I was to identify some of the red flags right off the bat, credibility. So it's interesting. We just had a 1-star review on our Google reviews with a consult that one of my associates had done. And the person was not a good person. Like they did not take any responsibility for themselves. They blamed everyone else for their problems. They had multiple refusals and outright misrepresentation within their applications, and they just didn't care. And so obviously the associate said, no, we have no desire to work with you. And then the person took a great length of time to provide a real nasty Google review. But I will take those every single day, Rosalie, every single day, if it means not acting for that person. And we are not hired guns. We're individuals who are designed and put in place to help people move through the process. But we're not people that just, they hire us to get a job done at all costs. So credibility issue is a huge factor. Unrealistic expectations. If they think, okay, well, I need PR quickly, and how are you going to get it? Sometimes boundary problems, right? Like if you have your initial interactions with clients and they're constantly, sending messages, excessive messages, pressuring for free advice, and they just have this big urgency before you even are retained as their representative. So boundary problems, you need to identify those right away, and blaming others, which ironically, this happens a lot too. Well, my previous consultant, that's a classic that comes to me. My previous consultant, they didn't do this or that. They messed up my case. Well, those are all warning signs for me because sure, there's crappy lawyers and there's crappy consultants out there for sure. But the reality is when I see an individual who's been through multiple and they're all blaming the other counsel, that's also a red flag for me. So it's not just that initial consult just isn't about whether or not, how you're going to represent them and things like that. It's really, are you even going to accept them as a client and screening them? It's, they may think it's just about hiring you, but it's not. You're interviewing them and determining if they are the right fit for you. So don't let that decision be about money. Because in the end, trust me, the cost will be far greater than whatever additional revenue you might be able to earn. Okay, so when should you take the client? And I guess the best way is to, look at yourself and the situation and the consult and see, is this person honest? Are they telling me the truth? Are they open to advice? So have they already got everything figured out and they don't want to really hear that you're telling them anything that they don't think is really the direction they should go, information that they don't want to hear? Can they follow instructions? So we have some detailed steps that we have our clients do as they're onboarded to even have the initial consultation. If they're struggling with that, then maybe they're not the right fit because we're a pretty high tech kind of firm and they need to be fairly tech savvy. ultimately, is there anything that you see here that, that might be even unethical with what they're trying to do? If their difficulties are emotional, they're just really stressed out of their mind. Well, that's different than someone who's just got a view to they don't care about the rules and they just want to find a way to get the result. There's a difference. If someone is just emotionally going through a really hard time, hey, that's where I can come in and help them. But the reality is, if it's something where I know deep down they're willing to do anything and they don't care, well, that's a tipping point for me. Yeah, there's a big difference between emotions and dishonesty. And then when should you not take a client, which kind of goes along with this, but if they want to hide things, and we know immigration is scrubbing through everything. So if they're someone who wants to hide things or maybe potentially misrepresent by omission, that's a huge no-go for me. Are they giving you clear and consistent facts? If they're not, if they're vague and kind of you got to keep digging for things, not the client for me. Another personal favorite is if they expect or want some kind of a guarantee or some kind of a shortcut to get to the result. Nope. And the big one, probably almost as big as all the others, is if they're disrespectful or aggressive to staff or even myself. Like myself, I don't care. You can say whatever you want to say. But the reality is, if you're disrespectful to my staff and you're, you're just they're not not good people, then no amount of money is going to cause me to want to work for them. So Rosalie, these are just some thoughts, and everybody's going to have different experiences. Everybody has different capacities to deal with challenging situations. And over the years, I've developed quite an ability to work with people and to help manage their expectations. And so I'm willing to take clients on if their issues are emotional and they're just desperate, right? But if I sense even for a moment that a client is not going to be honest with me or willing to follow my instructions, then those are big no-goes. So yeah, at the end, it's just so critical that you figure out where where your defining lines are and that you don't cross them and stay true to who you are. And integrity is everything.
Absolutely. And can you offer some suggestions or strategies for how you might approach saying no to representation if the client or the prospect wants to hire you and
Yeah.
it's not a good fit?
Yeah. Well, you can see that there's no one right way or wrong way. So when my associate told the person, no, we really don't want to act for you, when the person said, I want to hire you, then it resulted in a 1-star review. So understand that that's a possibility and you're not going to be able to please everyone. And I've had situations where I know someone's situation, they've got a lot of history that they're not willing to disclose. And one easy way is to say, hey, if you're not willing to disclose that, then I can't represent you. So that's easy. So if they say, well, I want to misrepresent, I want to withhold information, I don't want to tell it, or they don't want to follow your instructions, then it's pretty easy to say, well, hey, we're just not connecting here, and there has to be a solid relationship of trust and confidence, and I don't have the confidence that I'm going to be the best fit for you, and I think you may need to hire someone else that's a better fit. And yeah, like I said, there's no right or wrong way to say no. You don't want to lie, though. You don't want to say, oh, I'm just so busy that I just can't take on another client right now, which is pretty common response. You don't want to be dishonest yourself. That's that's not cool to say, well, I don't want to work for you because you're not telling me the truth, and then you create some other reason for not doing it. I'm very honest with them. Say, hey, I just don't feel comfortable moving forward, and I don't feel confident that I'm going to be the best representative for you. And it really, how you describe it and the answer that you give and the reason is directly related to what they're telling you. If they're not telling the truth, then you say, hey, I can't do it. I have a code of professional conduct with the Law Society. I can't, and I wouldn't ethically either submit your application without disclosing whatever the issue is, right? And we need to go back and disclose everything. So, and then there's other people that maybe they're constantly on top of you and say, hey, we don't work that way. Like, we're not going to be able to respond instantly to every email that you send. And I know that you need someone who's in a better position to be able to do that. And so we're just not a good fit for you. And so recommend that you maybe seek counsel from someone who's able to offer that same amount of time. And so those are some of the answers, Rosalie, but it's so context specific for sure.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time to highlight some of these red flags and walk us through some different scenarios and approaches. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Let's talk again.